Carried. Next is minutes of last meeting on the 25th of July. They were submitted to us. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
I'll make a motion. to approve.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
And second, discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is public comment. At this point, we have an opportunity for public to have comment if they wish. Step forward if you wish to have public comment. Okay. Hold on the screen, it looks like, so. Moving on to appointments, we have none. Next is consent agenda. There are 6 items on there. Initiate a search for deputy auditor. Amend the resignation of Tricia Crawl. Approve the search for replacement. And then the 3 banking facility resolution. Wish of the board.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second them.
Discussion.
Question,
Go ahead, sir.
are we recording yet?
Yes,
We are recording. Get that down.
Did good. Thank you.
I was just curious if we we're doing everything and gonna be done before.
Oh, we done this? Good point. All right, so everything's cooking there. So motion made and second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is consider quotes for replacement of the 2 courthouse HVAC systems. We have 2 bids. Is Tess available?
correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe she's yes, sir.
So we had 2 bids from, one from Winona Vet, one from Winona Controls. So
Okay,
the results are on there. in front of you.
Winona Controls are the
They were
30-some thousand cheaper.
whatever it said.
I believe there's some discussion in some of the emails on that. Trying to compare them, so. Winona Control seems to be the better bid of the 2.
Yes.
Any similar equipment, like equipment, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, that's, as they described it, it's all pretty much the same nowadays, but.
Okay.
And it won't last as long as the old stuff did.
Probably not.
Should for what it costs.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Feeling of the board.
Carol, we've got enough in the capital accounts to cover this.
Pardon?
We got enough in the capital
I
fund.
believe so, but like I said, without knowing exactly what the parking lot is. But I'm.
If we approve it, we gotta find it.
Well,
Well, no, without a doubt.
It's something we're kind of in desperate need of here.
Yeah.
It needs to be done.
I'll make a motion that we replace the 2. It's gotta happen.
which one was it? Greg,
Yeah, replace the 2 air conditioning backs or whatever they are.
we're talking about the air conditioner tests and. HVAC, any comment? Greg has made a motion. The bids are in.
Only that I consider it a health and safety issue at this point in time. And some Greg mentioned that we can't get parts for band-aiding things together. We did go out for 2 quotes. And this is the lowest of the 2 by a considerable amount.
Very good. Okay,
Can we
so
read the amounts for the record?
The total amount? Two different units. One unit is 44.5. The other unit is 83.5.
So about 128,000.
Not a small project.
It has to be done. Do you need a second?
Yes, we still need a second.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion then. Has to be done pretty much, it looks like.
Way overdue. The other one is surpassed its life. I'm not even sure when it went in. My assumption is sometime in the '70s.
Yeah, the rest could go down any day.
And we're down totally. What's the other discussion? I remember one of the emails that, won't be here tomorrow. It's gonna take some time to get it here too, won't it?
They'll do it probably after the cooling season.
If in fact we
Yeah.
hope to make it through the cooling season.
When are they expecting delivery, like September or October?
We have to give them the order. Well, no,
Okay,
That's a delivery deal, just like everything else. How long will it take to get it?
Where does it sit?
I mean, I think it's safe to say earliest delivery on something of this nature is probably 4 to 6 weeks. But that's just an assumption on my part.
If we get it by the 1st of October, we might be like,
well, like I say, we've kicked the can down the road far enough. I think the road has ended. So. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor of the bid for Winona Control, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried.
Thank you,
Very good.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the backside. Updates. Let's start with Greg this time.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, by all means, Bob.
Since Marty's here, I was at the board of adjustment meeting the other night. With regard to a property that a person wanted to build on and thought they had approval. A verbal approval when they did not. And it was a kind of a contentious board of adjustment meeting. One of their contentions was that in conversation, they come in early in the year, and then in March, formally made the request, and it took 10 weeks to get the answer, which was a no. But they spent a bunch of money to get their plans put together and whatnot. I asked Marty to be here only from the point of view of what can we do so it doesn't take 10 weeks to get an answer? And how can we, I mean, are we that shorthanded that it takes that long to get an answer on the permit one way or the other? I mean, we had situations in the past that have taken quite a bit of time too, so I asked Marty just to be here only from the perspective of it was denied, but the owner thought that they'd had a verbal approval.
Did they have a verbal approval?
In his mind, they did. He and his wife thought they had a verbal approval. I think
Where'd you get the verbal approval?
he said Marty told him it was okay to go. Marty, you want to come up?
How far are you? See if we can rectify this.
I guess I can sort of recount some of the history. I mean, I haven't gone back through the phone logs and everything, but the application came in March. And then we issued the first letter requesting information. The first letter went out and it took too long, was about May 24th. And that basically said, we're seeing no option other than denying unless you can basically show us something that we haven't seen yet. And as a result of that, they were not able to show anything, but they pushed and, they what are our options? And it was like, well, if we denied, you can appeal it, or you can go the route of a variance. And so then they requested the variance, and that's how that went through. As for the timing of all the steps and stuff, this one really threw me off in the sense that there was a lot of extra history from the past on this in terms of, what did they have? Did it really exist? Where was the survey? This kind of stuff in terms of the quarter lines had not moved in terms of the definitions of where the parcel, and those had all been established well in advance of the 2013 initial approval, which was given for a shop garage. But the application also said shop garage, but the minutes from that meeting said dwelling. And so that threw me off. I shouldn't have been distracted by that. I should have been just take what's in front of me. It's the survey, it's the lines, and that's what it is, and that's what it currently is. And so that was I'm cutting
You
through a
made the
lot here.
application in March.
Right,
Your response was in May.
the first written response, right?
Right. So that's a 2-month time frame. Well,
Right.
which in my mind seems to be a long time
It's
for
too,
them to have to sit and wait and wonder what's going on.
it's too,
As far as what happened in the past, I need to know in my mind, when somebody applies for a variance
Mhm.
and they get it, how long is that variance good for?
ever.
But that
No,
variance was.
no. My question is, if you don't act on the variance, how long does it last? I mean,
Well, the variance would lead to a building permit.
but if if you don't get the building permit, the
Ah,
variance dies at some point, does it
That
not?
time you meant, is that what you're saying?
Well, these are questions that need to be answered by a lawyer, but the variance was for a feedlot. And
Yeah.
a property line.
Right.
It wasn't to build a dwelling.
right. Exactly.
So the feedlot variance
Yeah,
was approved and that's fine.
right.
But they had it in their head that there was a variance for the dwelling like you're talking about. But the dwelling was never included in the actual permit that was requested and approved.
Yeah, that's that, but
Well, the board approved the variance that suggested dwelling. My question then is, if you get a variance but don't do anything with it, I know a conditional use permit goes with the land. That's forever. Variances aren't forever, are they?
I believe they are in terms of,
No. If you get a variance but don't do anything with it,
well,
it's just like a variance to have a building permit. And I go to my brother-in-law who bought a piece of land and then had to get a renewal of the variance for another year. And if he doesn't build the house within that 2-year span, he's got to start over.
okay, the variance, like say it's a setback requirement of so many feet.
Mhm.
Whether you built or not, you'd still maintain that setback if it was written that the variance was specific to a building. That might get interesting in terms of like a building permit. In other words, you have a variance for this new building from this distance. If it was written like a feedlot that said a setback from a distance, I don't know how that could go away. So in other words, there would be some dependence on how exactly it was phrased.
I'm of the opinion, or I was of the opinion anyways, that when you get a variance, if you don't act on it. you
I
lose
guess
the variance after a period of
in a
time.
lot of instances, I see the variance as the mechanism that allows you to apply for a building permit that we are able to issue because there's no outstanding nonconformances.
Right.
Didn't the previous owner actually did build a shed?
He did.
He acted on it. He built the shed.
Right.
And he got a variance from a feedlot to do it.
Right.
So the problem here is, we're going back to what you originally asked, is they got the impression that this was okay, and they went ahead and with plans to do it. There lies the communication problem.
Right.
And there's a letter, I looked through the packet myself. A letter on June 26th from the zoning office that we are recommending you apply for a variance. So the zoning office is recommending a variance for this non-permitted use. That's troublesome right there. And then also, they waived the fee to do the variance.
Yeah, that's not,
We can't be waiving fees, you know, it isn't fair to the previous people who paid fees to do this. Especially in a situation like this.
well, in the 9 years I was on the Board of Adjustment, you had the hearing, you paid. If you canceled the hearing before.
You got
didn't
your
have-
money
you
back.
Got your money back.
Yep.
But if you went through the hearing and you lost, yes or no, you paid.
Cause that pays the cost.
So why would we waive the fee on a variance for a non-conforming use?
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, they had the hearing, the people had to come here and listen to it all. I think we should have, I don't know what the hearing, what was it, 500, 700,
7.
7? No. I mean, we can't be doing this and losing our asses.
Well, isn't a variance for a specific reason usually?
Definitely.
So, I mean, and so to answer in my thinking here, Bob. The variance would. Change if somebody else, like there's a variance for the first building, is what I'm hearing here. I'm not familiar with the deal, but. So that variance was used. So it seems to me that he needs another variance if he's doing something that isn't quite. Follow the steps, you know.
Yeah, there's multiple, I mean, the second variance was a request to go around the quarter rule.
Right. And that we should never done.
And that's a use variance.
Yep,
and then-
we don't
So the
grant,
first.
we don't grant use variances. We don't even let that even go that far. For the quarter rule.
Variance is a
and-
Board of Adjustment, right?
Yes,
Conditional use permits are out.
That's planning.
or the planning commission then
Recommendation come to us for.
ultimately, yes.
So that variance would stick with his feedlot. That's a whole separate different deal.
Right.
So now if he wants to build a house, he's gotta get a variance and takes cup.
Yeah.
So he has to get them both now, but then he has 1 year. Build or do, or else he can get an extension for 1 year. So you can drag it out 2 years, and if you don't build within that 2 years, they're both gone.
Yeah,
The
start.
cup you can carry. The cup has a limitation, not the variance.
The variance you can. But to build the variance with a cup, then it has to be done. And then it's done after 2 years.
See, and I disagree a little bit. The cup, once it's approved, goes with the land.
Yeah.
It never goes away.
No, that's right.
Variance, if you don't use it, and I was always under the impression that after,
But the variance was used, that's what I'm saying. Previous owner used that variance to do that.
but the way it read in the statement. Well, the things that the board had approved. Included. The verbiage dwelling. The permit
Which
that they
he
got,
did, he built the shed with a bathroom.
Which you're allowed to
And
do.
there was a mistake made on the dwelling part that shouldn't have been in. There was a mistake, but that doesn't mean we can keep repeating that mistake. Also in this letter from June 26th. It says here, the new survey creates a situation where the Danielson dwelling is in the same quarter. Well, the new survey didn't determine that. It didn't matter which survey, the beacon line or the other line, it was still within the quarter. So that's why the Seelys were confused, thinking that we moved the lines on them and it created the situation on them. Well, that wasn't true. We didn't move nothing. It was wrong on Beacon. The survey is what it is. And it did not create this situation for it. So I think this whole letter is misconceiving here.
well, only from the perspective that they have a right. To come before the Board of Adjustment requesting the variance. Even though they've been told that it does not. It's not. According to the zoning office, something that's gonna be approved. But you still got the right to bring it to the Board of Adjustment if you want to.
Well, that's
To find out that the board says no. Because they're the final authority on it.
Well. In all honesty, we probably shouldn't be talking about it too much here.
All right. Anyways. I just, from the time frame of the 10 weeks, that's where I was
Right.
concerned and how long it takes to get.
Right, and I will,
if we're shorthanded or what the
well,
situation.
I mean, what I'm certainly gonna do is email on these kind of questions, way more, a lot more email. And we will certainly, phone log.
Thank you.
So for the deadline. Okay. Yeah, I learned a lot. Not, I won't dispute that for a second.
This is kind of a different pickle.
This is a tough one.
Okay, Greg,
I guess that was most of mine was that meeting that we had last Thursday night. Let's see, what else do we have? I guess that's probably about all I had since last Thursday night.
that's it. You wanna talk about the meeting with the sheriff then too, Bob? I
Yeah, you
don't
can
have my
jump
notes
in
with
too with some of these notes. So we met with the sheriff and the chief deputy and Dean, jail administrator, Dean, and they're running pretty tight ship there right now with the vacancies. Dean kind of explained that they're gonna try and get the positions filled, but he wanted us to be aware that as of right now, they're with the schedule that he's put together, that's the only possibility of doing it, has 4 hours per person per pay period of overtime. So that's each employee has a mandatory 4 hours of overtime minimum just to staff according to DOC regulations. So they're really tight. They looked at whether or not the idea of trying to end the Winona contract early would help or not, and they still would have to have the same number of staff members, is the way he explained it to us, but it would lessen the workload. They met with the Winona staff, and it sounds like they were going to try and assist with maybe some of the Zoom or online things for the inmates that we're housing to relieve some of the duties that our staff is doing that maybe they should have been doing along. But they're really gonna need to look at some changes in the future. They did do a study on wages, and like Dewey pointed out, that's part of their contract, so it's not a fix that they may have for a couple of years. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Part of the application process that they're having or running into is Winona's hiring, Fillmore County's hiring, et cetera.
Because they're building their new jail.
They're building their new jail, so the applicants aren't even applying for us because our scale isn't close to what their scale is.
Is that true? I don't think that, I think when we did our study, we were right in line.
They had the numbers.
Yeah. It changed here in the last, since we settled our contracts here a little over a year ago, that they're keeping up with the supply and demand, and they're jumping ahead and same with across county is having hiring deals too, so their remedy was to increase their starting wage.
Luckily, we're not seeing that in the deputy. Because that's all.
So I guess that's the dilemma right now, that
You want to talk? Yes.
I was just gonna add to your discussion in that if you take a look at the AMC website for employment openings, you will see jailers and dispatchers around the state, several counties are competing for a similar pool of people. So I think that the days of hiring experienced staff probably are gone, at least for a while, and that we will be doing grow your own, if you will. Although we are in the process of have interviewed late last week, we did interview 2 applicants. They are being considered at this time by the sheriff's office. One would be for the jail, and one would go for the jail. One is jailer dispatcher, and the other is a lead jailer dispatcher. The one that's a lead jailer dispatcher actually did come with considerable background, but we still have to have the training in our facility. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I really had for meetings, so just
You got back from the excitement before things started happening over there at Oshkosh too.
Yeah, we did.
Over the weekend,
Missed the storms.
Mr. Burns.
I had one meeting last week, a Celco meeting up in Rochester with regard to the library systems in southeast Minnesota. Big question as far as the libraries are concerned is whether or not Celco and Cells should merge and become one. Currently, Celco and Cells are two separate entities handled by the same people, but they are considered a nonprofit. They're the only one in the state that's a nonprofit library organization. All the others have merged and are governmental agencies instead of nonprofit agencies, so they lose their nonprofit status. The big question that everybody is dealing with, the 11 counties, 36 libraries, it would require a joint powers agreement between all those bodies. So you've got 11 counties, and the 36 libraries or cities all have to agree to it or it doesn't, or it won't pass. So whether or not it's gonna pass is kind of the big question on Celco and Cells merging. Otherwise, financially, it doesn't make any difference, other than the donations to a nonprofit that you don't get if you're government.
They have to agree 100%.
They have to agree 100%,
Oh,
is what we're told.
Is it a good idea?
Personally, I don't think so. I think that, I mean, the Cells is schools and the Celco is public libraries. There's different regulations between the two that you're merging together, and I don't know how well that's gonna work. Otherwise, that's okay. Then I had a question with regard to a notice that I received with regard to a pasture walk sponsored by the Land Stewardship Program. It actually sounds kind of interesting. Is it okay to go to that, or do we not want to?
You can go with that.
You can go to that.
I didn't know if,
It's out of Jordan Myers, eh?
Is it out at the Heinz farm or is it at the Jordan's farm?
George, as I understood, it's on
Jordan's?
Bring a side with, you can cut this.
Yeah, there's a lot of weeds.
It's a pasture.
but they're gonna talk about their goat business and stuff too.
Yep.
I mean,
So then they'll probably be out at Heinz's. That's where the goats are.
Oh,
I don't know where,
400 of them out there.
I just needed to know if it's okay to go to something like that without.
you were invited.
Yeah.
I was invited.
as long as nobody else is there or forum.
And I didn't know that we were sponsoring the circus. Circus,
Did you get those emails?
all those
too?
emails?
Oh, I didn't get any of it.
No,
They got deleted.
Okay.
By Monday morning, there was a whole list of emails from all over the country.
On that.
Yeah.
Circus.
Who said the one that
And-
IT sent out
Yeah.
It was spam.
spam?
Yeah,
Apparently they deleted mine before I saw.
you probably did.
Maybe it went to spam and you didn't see it in the,
I called Andy right away.
that was crazy. I mean, it was,
Oh, there was about 20 of them.
oh, at least,
That's all I got.
okay, here.
Well, I've been talking to Matt Hilgard from AMC, and I also been communicating with Carol on the CPA. And it looks like we're gonna get a significant increase in our CPA, so.
I sent it out yesterday.
Yep, yep.
Everyone.
Yeah. It was quite a change from the 20,000 that was.
Well, that would, you know, piece of the current amount, I should know that, but. We had an increase, but a lot of counties actually had decrease, so even though now they increased the amount. They're not getting what they probably would have. To be honest, because of the new allocation based on, they're two separate things, so
Mhm,
we came out better than some.
mhm. Getting back to the jail thing, so it was discussed about, was it ever brought up about maybe So even if we get rid of the Verona contract early, it isn't gonna alleviate the problem?
No, because the Department of Corrections rules, they have to have so much staff on just to maintain the,
Whether it's
So-
1 or 4
Or 15.
and we don't have enough staff anymore?
right now, we are, according to them, we're 2 staff short, and the way that he's juggling the schedule. He's got 4 hours per person per pay period, and then if somebody takes off, he actually moves them around somehow on the schedule to help save that overtime. He's really doing what he can to
Yeah.
try and to fill it and save, but they are definitely. He
Yeah,
had the numbers right there for us.
Will those numbers change at all? If we go to like a holding cell?
Well, then that you have to get reassessed by the state too on what you have to have staff. If it's a short term, long term. I couldn't even explain that. Dean would have to explain that.
We're certified as a 1-year hold, like.
Right, so-
Requires higher staffing than what we previously were at the 90-day.
Right.
I mean, that should definitely be analyzed because I don't know that I've ever seen anybody sentenced in our jail for longer than.
Yep.
You know,
That's something that we should look at is to reevaluate our holding period,
Right.
whether it's
That's
a year.
things that they're looking at.
Yep.
Once the contract's expired, where they're gonna go, so. He's still working on it.
To check into that, so.
Had we terminated it sooner. We wouldn't have the income, but we still have the expense.
Right.
So my understanding then that even though we lose Winona. We can't cut the staff.
Until we would change our facility.
Right.
Through the Department of Corrections.
So I was under the impression that we were gonna be able to cut. A couple of staff once we lost the contract.
They're
That's not the
running,
case.
they're running at whatever the minimum is for Department of Corrections right now.
You were correct, Bob, Robert, at the beginning, it's because, but since then, we've had a couple of resignations that changed, last week, Amy left us and now, Patty's leaving us, so. That's kind of the thing is that more people are going elsewhere.
Tess, you had a comment?
I'm just gonna comment, part of the difficulty in attracting applicants is the concern by applicants that the jail's going to close potentially, that we're having these discussions, which of course are necessary. The other consideration to please keep in mind, and I would certainly defer to the sheriff on this discussion, but that there are, how much of a savings you will have is really questionable as we still have dispatch. And dispatch, we have hybrid jailer dispatchers so that we can take advantage of dispatch covering the doors. And they count, I believe, as a jailer towards that. And then the other question that's out there, and I know the sheriff, he and I have just spoken very briefly, is looking at what other options, what are the requirements if you went to a 72-hour facility or I believe there's the option of potentially a 24-hour, that I'm not certain of. However, you still have to have some minimum staffing levels. We're 24/7, so it's not like you're going to be able to cut a lot of staff. And what that would be, and then the complications, of course, of having a jail where you have, pardon me, jail where you have both male and female inmates potentially, and having to have them female jailers as well as male jailers. Although there are some options on how that intake may be happening as far as when it happens and how you can hold the inmates for a while, waiting for someone to come on. So there's a lot of moving parts that the jail and the sheriff's office is really analyzing.
So if we went to holding 24-hour holding cell, we'd probably save what on food, cooking, insurance, what else would we save anything?
Well, you know, you can only go down so far and you still have to serve meals. But
But that, in fact, that you bring up the food contract, there are potentially options there that I know the sheriff is looking at as well. As to what that might be. Pardon me, I'm frog there. So,
You know, years ago, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but there was talk of sharing or working with other counties for dispatch. You know, I don't know if we're at that point yet, but having like a regional dispatch or something.
Yeah, we touched base on that a little bit, and that was, I mean, 30 years ago, they looked at a regional jail and dispatch, and
Should have done that too.
Exactly.
hindsight, that definitely should have happened. But yeah, that would be something maybe to talk with Mark and Brian a little bit about.
From the facilities perspective, if you did shut things down, there are certain things that would have to keep operational, as far as for proper mothballing, if you will, facility. So there are gonna be some cost tails there. And also looking forward as to what the next 5 to 10 years might be demographically, as well as, what courts seem to be doing with regards to sentencing, that you'd want to keep it in some perspective there, because it may be that we're just on a wait here, and that we're still getting close to a trial, and then the need might be doing it. So hard to look forward, easy to look back. But in making those plans from at least facilities perspective, I would say that's going to require some expertise along.
Well, from right now, I don't see the wave going the other way. Comes to sentencing or.
Can't disagree with you, of course.
Well, not in UC County.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot to think about and discuss and talk about.
There, on that issue, one of the things that if the facility is mothballed, shut down, there would be a lot of discussion in the county. Well, we built those things for you, you ain't using them, why not? I think that's,
Well,
it's a cost factor.
you know. We still need a holding facility, so.
So, I think we're still a little ways from that decision, I hope, and we'll see, but
Well, it's coming, you know,
it's coming.
when the Winona contract goes away, we're gonna have to make some decisions.
If we can't
For
hire,
next year's budget, so.
if we can't hire anybody, that ain't good either.
Okay. I was gonna have a good. Brian, you're on the screen there, I see, it looks like the parking lot's pretty much gotta wait for blacktop now, or what's the status on that? It looks pretty much done to me.
Yep, they're doing some final pour the concrete today. They'll have some finished shaping to do over the next couple days. The plan is to hopefully put on the first lift of pavement end of this week and surface lift next Monday if the weather holds out for us for the next week. And then at that point, then it's essentially striping. So parking lots, wrapping up here the next week.
Very good.
Brian, are you anticipating at this point any cost overruns or not?
Yeah, there's going to be some, end up being some additional curb that was done, and then a little small retaining wall. A few thousand here and there. It's not a 30,000+ type of 10% overrun. It's going to be hopefully in that few percentage points. The asphalt cost or the mix quantity, that's tougher to keep control of when it's such a the shape of the parking lot and stuff to we'll try to keep it down to the correct thickness, but that's a little bit tougher to control, so we won't know that overall cost until we get done with that.
So are we doing the south parking lot at the same time as far as the striping?
Yeah, I don't know if Tess wants to answer that. I don't know timing.
I have some information on that. Thank you for asking, Commissioner.
Sure.
So I just blinked out. So B and D provided a quote, sent, and there is, funds in the Justice Center improvement budget. And I've spoken with Carol about this to, seal coat the south lot, which will include, crack sealing and the 2 coats of asphalt sealer and, paint the lot markings. And, that is for, the amount of $8,650. Once, I talked with the, Peter Malling, regarding the when, and, it'll have to be after the west lot is actually, cured up and completed so that we have a second lot. And we are, once he gets all that information, and Brian, you and the folks finish that up, then, Peter will give us a date on when they can do the other.
You say give us a date, is that, will you do that on a weekend when the courthouse is closed?
I can talk to him about doing that.
You sure?
Mhm.
The west lot isn't gonna handle near the traffic that the south lot does. If it was on a weekend, it would be less disruptive all the way around.
Absolutely.
Well,
And we would need it.
this wasn't talked about before either, but I just want to, I'm not against it. I just want to give a word of caution that we've been spending some money here with roof. Now we just bought 2 chillers and a parking lot. So we gotta kind of watch the checkbook a little bit.
This is, within the improvement budget for the year. This is not in your,
No additional.
no additional funding.
But would not the improvement budget also? Could that not also be used for the west lot?
Is that what?
Could that not also be used for the west parking lot overruns?
I don't know that it's that big.
Yeah.
I have to look and see what's really left in there. I mean, we run pretty tight on our improvement budgets in facilities, but there is,
I'm just saying,
if there are
if the ceiling is $6,800, $8,600,
8650.
the wall. That one retaining wall was $4,000, $5,000.
What's this retaining wall?
It's along the west wall.
It's a short wall in front of the,
I don't think
handicap
that
access.
wasn't budgeted in either.
And I could look at the budget for the historic courthouse improvement budget and see what that amount is.
So when did we approve to do the retaining wall? We did.
That's a recommendation that while they're pouring the concrete, to put that up so it acts as a bumper block so people, because it's the handicap parking area, there's no lip between the lot and the sidewalk. So the wall on the other side, 1, eliminates the steep slope of the grass, and 2, it protects the building. If anybody goes beyond the parking space, they don't run into the wall of the building.
It's more along the size of a curb and it narrows and then gets a little thicker and narrows down.
That should have been in the plans. I would have thought.
Yeah, that wasn't in the original plans. It was, so the original plan, we had this, the curb going up and down a little bit in front of the handicap stalls. It's better to keep that sidewalk down. And put this little, yeah, like Tess or Bob, one of them said, it's more like a curb. The max height is 12 inches tall. For I think it's probably even less than 200 feet at 12 inches. Then it goes down to 7 inches. So essentially, it's like a curb on the back of the sidewalk. So
referring to it, retaining wall, basically a glorified curb, a little higher curb or something.
yes, yeah.
It's installed, take a look.
Yeah. To look at it.
We looked at pulling the dirt away. Brian looked at all of that. We walked around that and it is, Brian, can you bring us up to date on what you found?
Yeah, so we dug some potholes next to the building, trying to see what it looks like. So right up against the base of the building, there is some concrete poured up against the stone blocks. And that concrete is it doesn't go throughout all of it. The area where the old entrance used to be, there's no concrete at that location. The rest of it, that concrete extends just a little bit underneath the existing ground surface. So if you dug down next to the building, you get into a lot of areas that would have to be re-tuck pointed, redone. Doesn't look very good. It's going to be more of a more expensive, more rehab costs to try to lower that dirt down fully next to that building, keep that flatter slope. Another option was to keep the grade at the existing height at the building, slope it down to the sidewalk. That gets into a steeper slope, and maintaining that, especially if you want to ultimately put on some, whether it's rock or wood mulch or anything on that in the future. That's not going to stay there. It's going to want to come down onto the sidewalk. Grass clippings come down to the sidewalk. It's better to keep that grass area flatter for maintenance purposes as well. So ultimately that little curb or wall is the better the options for that few $1,000s versus trying to spend money on other aspects and get a lesser result.
You also found some, I can't remember what kind of pipe.
Yep, there was a buried, we found a lot of little things throughout that project. We found a couple old building foundations. We saw a clay tile that was buried, clay sewer pipe that was from one of the old buildings that's no longer in place. We found a clean out that's serving the existing building. Right in the southwest corner of the building that was under the ground. That clean out was tipped. It's actually still a live pipe, so we got that straightened back up and it's accessible up the surface. So if anyone needed to get in there to clean out that pipe, do any jetting, that the clean out's now active. We saw some buried water lines that were no longer in service. That was a galvanized pipe, so that was good to get that line out of there in the valve. All kinds of stuff, plastic water line that's no longer acceptable to the city that's serving the adjacent property owner's building, that got redone. Hollow areas underneath sidewalk and going into the neighbor's building, that got fixed at the neighbor's expense. He hired a contractor to do that work. There was all kinds of little issues that popped up. Most of the stuff is no or very, very minimal cost to the project. But it's whenever you work around municipalities, in these older towns, you always encounter something that's unknown. But overall, the project's gone pretty smooth.
But you didn't find anything of value.
Didn't find anything of value, no.
The clean out might be.
But we didn't find any any arrowheads or anything that would stop the project either, so that's good.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Okay, I guess couple of comments I have is tonight's a national night out for all the PDs throughout the area and sheriff's departments. I won't make the meeting tomorrow and wait 8 weeks for an appointment with this guy, and all he decides to come at 7:30 tomorrow morning, so it's that. Donna, you're on the screen here. Donna, are you there? Or is she just doing the recording?
Okay, I'm here, I just,
You are. Short timer, well, I just wanted to comment and thank you for all your years of service serving the Houston County and wish you a great retirement.
well, thank you so much. Appreciate all you guys do as well. I'll be watching you.
Well, you be, oh, that's my watching now. I
All
thank
right.
you again for all you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thanks, Donna.
Yep.
Anything else for the good? No, any more public comment? Okay. Okay, no public comment. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So we'll.
Second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're done. Thank you.